Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a pretty fascinating dynamic: how a startup-minded hero, the entrepreneur, can actually survive and thrive inside a giant, slow-moving corporate Goliath. It's a topic that's literally reshaping how we think about modern business. We always hear about that lone entrepreneur in a garage, right? But what happens when you take that exact same fierce, innovative energy and drop it straight into a massive, established organization? Well, that is exactly what we're going to unpack today. So I want you to think about the very real threat of stagnation. You might be wondering, why do large organizations even need an entrepreneurial mindset in the first place? I mean, they already have the market share, right? Well, not exactly. With rapid, incredibly sophisticated global competitors popping up literally every single day, and this huge drain of top talent leaving to start their own small businesses, sticking to traditional corporate management is frankly a recipe for disaster. Corporations are being forced to restructure and constantly innovate just to keep their heads above water in today's global markets. To get through all this, our roadmap for today is pretty clear. We're going to cover 1. The need for innovation, 2. What corporate entrepreneurship actually is, 3. Radical versus incremental innovation, 4. Strategies for building an innovative climate, and finally, number 5, overcoming bureaucratic obstacles. Let's hit section 1. The need for innovation, the threat of stagnation. Standard corporate practices often completely backfire when it comes to innovation. Just think about it. A traditional company enforces these really strict standard procedures, supposedly to avoid mistakes. But the adverse effect? Innovative solutions get completely blocked and funds end up misspent. They want to control everything strictly against a predetermined plan, which just causes them to ignore vital new facts because, well, they don't fit the plan. And honestly, worst of all, they try to protect the base business at all costs. That means any bold new venturing is immediately dumped the second the core business feels even slightly threatened. These rigid rules are literally stifling the exact growth these companies desperately need to survive. Moving on to section 2. What is corporate entrepreneurship? Defining the antidote. The absolute crucial point here is that corporate entrepreneurship is all about acting like a startup, but from inside the massive company walls. Basically, it's a process where individuals or groups who are backed by an existing organization go out and either create an entirely new business unit, or they instigate this massive sweeping strategic renewal within the current one. They're out there generating, developing, and implementing wild new ideas and behaviors. And the best part? They don't have to quit their jobs and go work in a freezing garage to do it. This massive concept actually breaks down into 2 distinct paths. First, you've got corporate venturing. This is when those entrepreneurial efforts lead to the creation of brand new business organizations right within the corporate structure. So think of it as launching new internal startups. Then on the flip side, you have strategic entrepreneurship. Now, this one isn't necessarily about launching a new product. It's more about strategic renewal or organizational rejuvenation. It's about fundamentally changing how the current business operates and reconstructing its entire business model to stay relevant. All right, section 3, radical versus incremental, the mechanics of innovation. So there's a really distinct difference in the mechanics of how innovation actually happens. Radical innovation, that is your massive, game-changing breakthrough. It requires heavy experimentation, absolute determined vision, and honestly, it can't always be strictly managed. It kind of just has to be nurtured. On the other side of the coin, we have incremental innovation. And this is the systematic, step-by-step evolution of an existing product or service into a newer or larger market. A lot of times you'll see a radical breakthrough hit the market first, and then incremental innovation takes the wheel to refine it and grow it over time. Both of these are absolutely critical for a company's survival. Let's jump to section 4, strategies for an innovative climate, building the ecosystem. Building this kind of climate definitely doesn't happen by accident. It happens through a very specific, step-by-step strategy. First off, leadership has to develop and articulate a crystal clear vision. Second, they have to actively encourage innovation, and I mean both radical and incremental. Third, they actually need to structure the climate to be entrepreneurial. Fourth, individual managers need to be prepared and specifically trained for corporate innovation. And finally, the organization has got to develop dedicated venture teams to actually take these ideas and execute them. Let's zoom in on that very first step for a second. The vision. A central mission cannot just be some motivational poster on the break room wall. It's held together by 4 crucial orbits. Employees need a real sense of belonging, like a purpose way beyond their daily tasks. There also has to be mutual trust in their relationships. The structure needs to actually allow for local initiative. And finally, there must be active commitment and participation from the employees themselves. If literally any of these four elements are missing, the vision falls apart. And trust me, the entrepreneurial spirit dies right along with it. To fuel this commitment and actually structure the climate, companies use something really clever. It's called venture capital. This is real money. Think of it as internal venture capital set aside specifically to fund these startup-like experiments. The absolute beauty of venture capital is that it allows innovators to access resources without having to fight through standard, soul-crushing budget red tape. It just empowers them to move fast and test things out in the real world. A perfect, concrete example of a supportive climate in action is 3M's famous rulebook. They operate on these amazing principles like don't kill a project, tolerate failure, keep divisions small. They are actively encouraging employees to take risks, and they explicitly tell management to tolerate failure as a learning experience. They also make absolutely sure to share the wealth and reward the innovators who pull it off. It's a complete 180 from those rigid traditional management practices we were talking about earlier. Which brings us to Section 5, Overcoming Bureaucratic Obstacles, the Reality of Risk. For an entrepreneur to actually succeed, every single level of management has to play a specific, highly supportive part to shield the innovator from standard bureaucratic roadblocks. Senior-level managers, they have to ratify and direct the vision. Middle-level managers, who, let's be honest, are often the biggest bottleneck in large corporations, they must actively endorse the ideas, refine them, and acquire the necessary resources. And first-level managers are the ones on the ground, experimenting with the change and promoting adjustment. If even one level drops the ball, the innovation just gets crushed by the bureaucracy. And we really have to talk about what happens when things go wrong. Because in entrepreneurship, they absolutely will. When an innovation fails, the organization cannot punish the team. Instead, they have to actively manage what researchers call the grief process of project failure. People pour their absolute hearts into these ventures. The company must provide social support systems to ensure the team recovers, learns from the mistakes, and builds that motivational resilience they're going to need for their next big idea. I want to leave you with this incredible quote from the Corporate Innovators Commandments. It says, "Permission is rarely granted in organizations, thus always seek forgiveness for the ignorance of the rules that you will display." So as you look at your own organization, ask yourself, are you ready to boldly break the traditional rules and become the entrepreneur your company desperately needs? Because the companies that survive tomorrow are the exact ones empowering their rule breakers today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.